So after like 1 or 2 corrections, if you could tell like he's not being really disobedient, he just doesn't know exactly what to do, you can give a little bit of help. I just want to make sure that help comes after the correction, not before it. Because we've got to make sure we identify that that was wrong so that we could then help and show him what it is we want him to do.
It's so cute. Oh. Whoa, I get a special Ruby plant. I heard you've been a star lately, huh?
She was so good.
Yeah?
We were outside, it was me, my mom, and my dad, and like from 12:30 to 5:30.
Yeah.
Like digging up landscaping. She was listening to my parents really well.
Yeah.
Like, they put her on sit stays, and
Nice.
she was so good.
I'll just start with like general handling with her. I'm gonna like take the brush to her, see how she responds. I'm sure you brush her.
With the brush.
Yeah. And then the nails, have you ever used a Dremel for her?
We bought one and we like kind of introduced it to her. But this was before we did any training.
Sure.
So I don't know. And like even when we got her groomed and they did her nails, they said she didn't like it.
Okay.
And that was also before training. So
Yeah. We shall see. So I'll start just by turning it on. I'm going to get her used to the sounds. I think that one of the scariest things for dogs is just the initial noise of it. Hi. We're not going to sniff it though. A lot of the nail trimming will just be persistence. So I'm going to try not to correct her at all unless she's doing something really just nonsense, like jumping on me or trying to bite. And I just want to ease her into it. I also don't want her to feel like it's like a horrid experience either, because nail trimming is something she'll just have to kind of live with. So the easiest we can make it is just having her realize that it's not that scary and doesn't hurt her. Good job. Go ahead. Look, here we go. Oh. She said, I survived. She said, it was awful, guys. Nobody was saving me. Yes? Oh, yeah. So obviously with nail trims, my goal is not to get it as done fast as I can. My goal is to get her into a place where she's allowing me to touch her nails. So it took a little bit of work to get her kind of finagled. She was mostly squirmy, and I didn't get the sense that she was really trying to bite to harm me. But I started to cut out some of the nonsense with just like the mouthing. And I think once we got her to that place, set some expectations, she's like, okay. I guess I have to let this happen. And there are some things with our dogs that unfortunately they don't have a choice on, which grooming and nails and things to benefit them are.
That's what I was going to say, is I've never seen a dog actually enjoy their nails.
Yeah, yeah. And we can certainly get her to a place like with frequent nail trims where she's just able to completely comply and accept. And we can make it a positive experience once we get over that like initial like freaking out. There came a time where she wasn't interested in the food anymore, but sometimes I suggest if you do have a Dremel, maybe hit in those nails every 2 weeks, just to get her accustomed to it and used to being touched and holding the paws. Because a lot of it is just persistence. Yeah. It does take a lot of patience, but I think like patience and persistence really goes a long way with some of these kind of things. Because for her, it's valid that she's having anxiety. She doesn't know what we're doing to her. Yeah. She's like nervous about the noise. So it's good to be empathetic to her, but I'm also not gonna allow her to be like, if I squirm and if I freak out, she's gonna let go and then I'll never have to get my nails done again.
We're here with Michelle as she is on the journey to find the best peach tea.
I've been searching, okay? Arizona was at the top. Okay, like my rubric though, we have to have like the scoring rubric. Mild to no aftertaste. Yeah. That's hard to find. And then you have to have a nice strong peach flavor, but you can't lose the tea in there. It can't taste like juice. Some of them get too far and then you're tasting like juice. And it tastes fake. Today we've got Joe tea. This, I mean, I've sampled many. This might just knock out the #1 spot. Congratulations, Joe tea. They're manufactured in New Jersey. They know their teas up there. And their beaches, apparently. Apparently in the beaches. This is great. That raspberry tea is good too.
Also featured raspberry tea from Joe's Tea.
Delicious.
Well. Very good.
Get it out. So socialization today is a big thing we want to take a look at?
Yes.
Yeah, I think socialization is going to be a big thing too, because like once you guys can start giving them that outlet, that's going to be huge. Yeah. Generally speaking, you got a couple different ways you can go about doing this. One that I'm going to show you is going to be if you have like a fenced in area that you could do it in. The other would be if you don't, right? The idea is before we go to actually put him with the other dog, we want to put him in a position where we could establish either some degree of control over him in the presence of the other dog, right? So make sure we can get him to focus in before we introduce, or we want to give them the ability to allow them to introduce through some sort of fence or something with no restrictions in the form of a leash or anything, and make sure there's not going to be any sort of like nonsense before we go to let them in, right? So we'll start with obviously the case of obviously there being some sort of fence. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him loosened here, obviously. In a minute, what I'll do is I'm going to bring another dog out and I'm going to have them loose on this side. And I just want to see how they interact with each other through that fence. Now, that's not going to be 100% surefire way of, can you hold this page? Thank you. That's not going to be 100% of a surefire way to guarantee there's not going to be any sort of problem or anything like that. But it's going to be kind of your best bet of assessing the situation and seeing if there is any sort of like arousal or overstimulation issues or anything like that. You can kind of squash it and get that under control before you let them actually meet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another dog. He's going to stay on this side, and I'm going to have that other dog loose on this side, and we'll see what we get. And then again, this is what we kind of want to just assess here, is just as they sniff through if there's any sort of weirdness or anything like that. And generally, this I'll spend the most time on initially, because what I'm looking for is I'm looking to see almost neutrality before I go to introduce. Very good. You see curious, but nothing crazy, obviously, which is good. we'll keep letting this play out for a couple more minutes, and then we'll go ahead and let him on in. And then the other big rule when we're going to socialize is we want to remove any sort of resource that could be of competition. So that would be food, toys, or affection. Affection is generally the biggest one we'll see that creates problems, which is why we recommend when you go to introduce for the first time, while the dogs are out together, you don't want to be like talking to them, touching them, anything like that. You're just there to supervise, just make sure there's not any sort of big issues or anything.
Now, had there been an issue, what would you have done with the controller? Or what were you looking for to correct with the controller?
Like right there, you're saying?
Yeah.
So the only things that I would correct for is if he were like jumping at the fence, like actually putting his paws on it, trying to bite at it, something like that. Which again, aren't things I ever really saw with him in this context, but regardless if he did it, we would correct for that, obviously. Or if it actually started turning into like, we would call like fence fighting, which is just like, you see like this big reactive display of him just desperately trying to get to the other dog through the fence, like similar to what you would see at the end of the leash, right? But sniffing, all that, you know, hair up, tail up, anything like that, I don't actually mind any of that because that's just stimulation. So I'm gonna give him one more minute and then I'm gonna go ahead and open this gate. When I open the gate, I'm not gonna force either them into that side or him into this side. I'm gonna let them kind of figure out where it is that they wanna go. Drooling machine. So same deal, just totally ignore the dogs at this point.
He doesn't normally do this.
Stress, that's what it is.
But
Yeah.
I've never seen him do that.
Yeah. He gets himself so worked up when he comes here, you know? And this is just the first time like he's really like letting some of it out, so. Mr. Foamy Mouth. And I always tell everybody, the second side of things is like, neutrality is fine, right? I didn't correct him or anything like that. He's just sitting over there. He might think he needs to stay there. I don't know, but whatever. I'm not gonna force it, right? Why don't you guys go ahead and walk away from him? Again, I don't care if he moves or anything like that, but sometimes if it seems like the dog is really glued up on you and thinks they need to be next to you, I'll try to create a little distance just to show him that he doesn't have to be next to us, right? You guys are away from him now and he's not getting any corrections or anything like that, obviously. So we'll just let this play out for a couple minutes here, and then what we'll do is we'll try some more energetic dogs, obviously, but I usually try to start with somebody that's gonna be nice and calm. God, there's just drool everywhere right now. And again, just totally ignore the dogs right now. So we're just supervising here and just seeing what we get.
It is so hard for me to ignore dogs.
Yeah, right? And right there, how he kind of had that like icebreaker moment where he's like, oh, okay, I can get up and start sniffing. That's a really important part of this process, and you really have to let the dogs organically do that, you know? Because he very well might have thought he was in a downstay or something there. Or since we've been focusing a lot on teaching him to ignore other dogs and people on the walk, he's just kind of defaulted to doing that, which again isn't a bad problem to have, but now we're starting to show him kind of time and place with stuff.
My dad's current Great Dane puppy is just scared of everything.
Oh, yeah. Great Danes are quirky dogs. All right, so we're gonna put these two away. I'm gonna grab a different one, and we'll do the same exact process again. So same process. We'll start through the fence for a minute here, see what we get, and let her on in. And if you get pretty complete neutrality like that, you don't have to wait too long. So. Again, you can see that's the second icebreaker moment, right? He's like holding it in. He's like, okay, I can let it out. And again, this is that really critical point where if like both these dogs were coming over to you and you guys were interacting with them and petting them and stuff like that, you immediately create this kind of high value resource that they're gonna fight over, and it can start turning into altercations very quickly. I don't want the dogs glued up to me while they're socializing, right? If they come over, I want them realizing they're not getting anything from me. Nice. Poppy. All right, I'm gonna take her in, and then we will do one more. It's interesting though, because you can see as we're introducing him to different dogs, even though he's not like crazy and playing or anything like that, disciplined for a couple of things, stuff like that, we start to see him balance out and even out into like, this is like the calmest state of mind I've seen him in here in a while, you know? So it really is that harmony of like all of these different details, right? Like all the things we've done on the walk to help curb his behavior, right? Socializing him, right? Making sure that when he's off leash and free, he understands there's still rules and accountability and stuff like that. All of those different things combined together is really how you start to get like harmony and balance with stuff.
When we first started the social, like you did do the fence, how would you do that with like if you didn't have a fence?
Yeah, so you've got two ways you could do it. One is try to find somewhere where there's some sort of fence or gate or something like that that you could do it through. The other option would be, let's say we just had like an open area we could let the dogs in, but not like a fence that they could interact through. I'd have both dogs on a leash, and that's where I was talking about like way two that we go about introducing the dogs, is I would have that dog on a leash over there, I would have him on a leash over here, I would put him into a down, I would correct firmly if he broke that down, and I would make him hold that for just a couple minutes. I'd let the energy and stuff settle down a little bit so both dogs aren't just totally going bananas, and it kind of accomplishes the same or similar thing, right? And then once that's good and I'm ready to go, you just unleash dogs, let them go, and then supervise, no different than any other way. But the reason why that way will work in that context is because with our problematic dog, in this case him, like the other dogs, wouldn't be, we would be only socializing him with dogs that are like really, really social, right? We're establishing that control and that accountability first, right? Where if he does make any mistakes or get himself too worked up where he can't pay any attention to us, we're making sure we're solving that problem before we go to introduce them, right? It's another reason why he was so good in this social context, is you could tell, like, even as he was socializing, he kept checking in with us, right? He was like, is this okay? Like, is everything I'm doing cool, right? And because of that, he wasn't escalating to that level, like 11 state of mind that you would see him in otherwise. And if he doesn't do it, tell him no for it. And then you can just set that leash down and then just leave him there. So this gets into kind of like the cool down period of socialization. Now this is not absolutely required by any means, but it's nice to do, is once you've given him a chance to interact, ending with some sort of control like this, right? So obviously we've got a dog chilling right there. We're asking him to do something and focus on us, not the other dog that's loose right now otherwise. And we would do this just to kind of focus on a little bit more kind of the state of mind side of things and balancing things out further. So we'll just let him chill there for a minute, and I want to see him get a little bit calmer, let him cool down for a minute too. As far as the introducing to the other dogs, did you guys have any questions on that?
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's one of those ones where you just got to give it a go, see how it goes. You know, if you're, you know, a little nervous or uncomfortable or anything, one other thing that you could do is you could have him just drag his leash around, right? Don't hold it, but have him drag it. That way, if you really needed to go in and, you know, break something up or something like that, you have the ability to. But like I said, we never really had any big problems with him socially. Like, he really was relatively good with the other dogs. He probably just needs to get used to socializing like with you guys. And like I said, on top of that, I'm glad we saw where he started getting a little worked up by the stuff going on outside of the fence, because that's gonna be a big one where if you see a little bit of that in the house, to kind of start working on it. And maybe spend a week where, you know, a little bit more frequently in the house he wears it, just so if you see any of that kind of stuff, you could address it. Outside, oh, he does.
But we just don't have their remote on it.
Oh, that's okay, you don't have to, right? So let's say this was over here, right? And he were to do something we didn't want, right? That same situation were to happen, I could mark with no and just walk all the way over to it, grab it, give a correction. And because we used that no marker, he would associate that correction with what he was doing when he heard no. Even if when I said no, like he stopped, I could still give that correction and he'll still associate it. This looks great. This is a really good day for him. And I'm really, really happy to hear about how well the walking is going too. Those couple adjustments we made when I came over the house at one time, I think those really made a big difference. So.
I have like a little bit of those like escalated moments.
Sure.
But they're very much less.
Yeah, fewer and further in between.
Fewer and further, and
Yeah.
like easier to get in that.
Yeah.
So I just think it's
And the fact that you're able to finally start taking him to these really populated places and stuff, man, as you keep doing that, you're just gonna see it keep getting better, you know? And tack onto that now, if you have the ability to socialize him every now and then, again, that's gonna really take it to the next level even, you know? There's something about the socialization where it's like once owners start doing it on their own, especially if their dog used to be really reactive, it helps you just like mentally shift out of this state of mind of like looking at your dog as like a liability sometimes, right? And seeing like, oh, like you're not a monster, right? Like you can it really is, you know, and then in their mind, like I said, things just become way less novel. I mean, there's a reason why we walked him in here. He didn't even look at that dog, right? He didn't care, right? Because he just was with, you know, 4 other dogs a minute ago.
Issues that we've had lately was one lady up on the square, I was sitting over by the pizza place.
Yeah.
On the bench, and he was like under the bench in front of me, and she stopped and like insisted on seeing him. And I told her no. And then
Oh my gosh.
Like, bitched back at me, and then he stood up and
Yeah, sure.
reacted.
And like looking at that situation too, because you guys have done a good job of controlling him and controlling the environment around you, meaning you're not letting those situations regularly happen, this and that. Generally speaking, we'll see dogs only start reacting when they sense that like nobody else has control of this situation right now, which that's like a pinpoint example of that, right? Like it's like you are losing control of the situation because this lady's like, no, I have to pet him, right? And that's what ultimately set him into his tizzy with it. So. I mean, it's a little more understandable.
Hi guys, it's Bridget with Miracle Canine, and I'm here with Mr. Michael. And today we're going to be doing a nail trim. We've done several nail sessions with him in the past couple of weeks as he started his training process. And we've chosen to take it a little bit slow with Michael because he has a history of seizures. And the vet and his owner don't exactly know the root cause of the seizures. So sometimes seizures or strokes can be stress induced. So we're taking things really slow with him over the course of the next couple weeks. And he's made a lot of improvement nail-wise, but we kind of just set a timer for 15 minutes and try to get the nails trimmed up and get him used to his paws being held, always ending on some sort of success so he never feels like the antics, the biting, the squirming is working to stop the nail trim. Good. So you can see he's very interested in food. So the moments that the struggling and the panic kind of stop, I'm taking that as an opportunity to reward him. Good. And I'm trying to make a more positive association with the whole process. So every time we go to do his nails, it is not very stressful for him, and he's been a little bit conditioned to the process. These are looking nice, buddy. So working a dog through physical limitations, whether that's health-related issues, obviously we want to make things as least stressful as possible while still getting success. So obviously I don't want to end when Michael is kind of flailing around and giving me a hard time, and I want to find a spot that we can end with success, knowing that we have several weeks to continue to work on his nails. So there's almost no rush to do them all at once, but I just kind of want to get him into this state where he is just allowing me to touch them, allowing me to hold his paw. And I should never feel like the nail trim is about getting it done as fast as I can. I want to make sure that the dog is comfortable and allowing these certain things to go on. Good job. Let me see. Good. Good job. Mikey feet. Good. Good job. In his first nail trim, he was quite squirmy, and he had the intensity a little bit to nip away at my hand to try to stop the nail trim. And as you can see, we've started to work off muzzle and get him just kind of equipped to feeling the Dremel and getting those nails trimmed back. Good job. So again, my goal is not to have the nails be perfect. My goal is just to start to get him conditioned positively to getting his nails trimmed and not make the process so stressful for him, because long term it's going to be far more stressful if we don't work him through handling issues like nail trims, baths, and things than it is to kind of just take it slow and get him accustomed to everything that we need to do to keep him healthy and happy. Right, buddy?
Wow. Look
Wow.
at what we have here.
You see, guys, with just a little patience, you can accomplish all your goals and dreams in your life.
Well, what we'll do, the reason why I picked this location, there's like a really awesome little hiking trail like behind this golf course that I like to come to a lot with my dogs. And generally there's some dogs on it, sometimes there's not, but it's usually like a really great time. And I kind of want to maybe experiment with doing a little bit of maybe off-leash stuff with him and stuff too.
Oh, wow. I would say that these days, the scenarios where he reacts or we have to correct them
Yeah.
are when dogs act like he did.
Oh, so when they're like fully reacting at him? Yeah. That's always the hardest situation, you know? I just did a lesson a minute ago with another dog that, you know, had some reactivity issues. And, you know, our last like 2 or 3 sessions we've had, like not a single reaction. But today we got rushed by like an off-leash dog that was like getting really defensive with him. And he kind of started freaking out back at that dog. And I even said in that situation, I was like, that's like I don't want him to do it, obviously, but like when you get into some of those situations, it's a little more understanding why he would do it. I'm still going to correct for it. I'm still going to stop it, but you know, I'll kind of cut him a little bit more slack with some of those situations. Still though, just keep in mind, right, like make sure that you're keeping your level set almost even higher still than you generally would, just due to the fact that at this point, because he's doing so well, the things you're gonna need to correct for are really gonna be those bigger scenarios, right? So you don't wanna have it set lower for like a little mistake because he's making so much less little mistakes, you know? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give him a little bit of freedom here in a minute. We're gonna pop the leash off of him, let him sniff around a little bit, but we're gonna talk for a minute about how I generally structure this with my dogs, right? So my kind of philosophy on like off-leash stuff, if you're in this type of setting, right, where there's not really a lot of stuff going on around, obviously, I'm not super worried about somebody surprising me out of nowhere because we could see pretty well, you know, down the path, obviously, is I let him do what he wants to do, but I set a general perimeter in which I expect that he should be checking in, right? So what that's going to look like is, let's say we say the perimeter is 60 to 70 feet, which would be like here to like that tree over there probably, right? Every time he hits that point, what I'm gonna do is I'm either going to say his name and see if he stops to check in with me, or I'm gonna work a come command, right? We're gonna do the come command to really dial in the control side of things, obviously, right? And what we should see is after repetitions of doing that is he'll go a little ways, but then he'll periodically just stop and start checking in with you just because he knows that there's a chance that you're gonna be calling him in a minute.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
The second thing would be we're gonna periodically, as we're doing this, practice, even if we don't see anybody, calling him to us, putting him into a sit-stay off to the side to practice the drill we would need if hypothetically we saw somebody coming down the trail to get him back under control, right? So those are our 2 criteria right now. So, does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Sure. All right. So why don't you go ahead and unclip his leash here?
Don't go nuts.
Yeah, right. And let's just start walking. And we'll say, like I said, try to visualize, you know, 60 feet or so ahead of you. And that'll kind of be the criteria of where we give that command, obviously. And when you do give that command, you can give that come command one time and just come to a stop. Obviously, additionally, I generally set my e-collar up way high when we're off leashes, like the just in case. So, and obviously, right now, he doesn't need to be next to you. Technically, he's free here. If he stays next to you, no big deal, obviously, but if he goes off, it's fine as well.
And like way high, like if we were gonna correct him for reacting
Sure.
to a dog, like generally.
Well, here's the
we're in
thing.
a 40 to 50 range. So if you were gonna go
So-
extra high.
So couple things. One, if we were to see somebody walking with a dog, I would call him back to us and I'd probably pop his leash on real quick just in case, right?
Yeah.
But generally, like I keep this, like right now we're at, I just turned it up to like a 70 as just, you know, a precaution. And I'm very quickly ready to turn it all the way up if I need to, right? Because it's not even so much the dogs that I'm concerned about. It's, yeah, if there's like suddenly a deer runs past those or something like that. I want to be ready for anything, you know?
I'm not falling into the
Yeah, right.
This is a trap.
Yeah. And that's an important thing when you're first starting this, is don't force him to like go off, obviously. Even if he thinks hypothetically he's in position right now, I want him to kind of figure out organically he can go off, as opposed to us create a bunch of energy and be like, go, right? And it's good that he's organically just checking in on his own right now. That's kind of what we want. We're just kind of loosening up the parameters in which, you know, he could go before he has to do that.
So how do you begin to build reliability and like feel confident?
Sure. Like in an off-leash setting?
Yeah.
Well, one is you pick a quiet place.
Okay.
So this trail is kind of like, you're getting kind of my secret spots right now. Because like there's not usually a lot of people on this trail.
Got it.
Because it's a bridle trail, it's not really a hiking trail, right? Two, you have to experience a moment where he makes the wrong choice and gets corrected for it, right? So we're not going into this like, I hope he doesn't make any mistakes. I'm going into this with, I hope he makes a couple mistakes so we could correct for it, and he learns that just because you're off leash doesn't mean you have 100% freedom to do anything you want. And I want to see him kind of start stopping and sniffing stuff and this and that, showing me he understands that he is free, obviously. And then don't say anything else right now. If he doesn't come all the way over to you, I want you to say no for that, obviously. Right there? Nope. There you go. Perfect. He's like, which person? Very good. All right, go ahead and release him. Just tell him okay. Break. There we go. So you see how obviously that come command, kind of lollygagging on the way back a little bit. That's where when we're working the off-leash stuff, we want to be much more strict about that. So, and to give you a reference, that was about a 50 I corrected at for that. So next one is going to be much higher.
Got it.
Okay. So I want to see, like I said, if we're going to give you all this freedom, I want to make sure that come command is really, really precise.
Yeah.
So in a minute here, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you almost try to evade him. So try to kind of sneak away from him so you can create some distance so we can do another come command. Now, once they start getting the zoomies, go ahead and give a come command. And then give him a second. If he doesn't turn back, go ahead and mark with no. Go ahead and call him one more time. There we go. And now I want to see if he finishes it, comes all the way back. There we go. So initial one, right? So when he got that correction, he tried to do the right thing. He just went to the wrong person, right? So I don't want him guessing, obviously. I want him listening for who's giving that command. Now that second one right there, I don't know if you said no or not, but I did give a correction there because any stopping of it at this point, we want to be correcting for. So cool, and you can go ahead and release him here, let him kind of hang out again. A lot of times we'll always find that when you first let the dogs off leash, they'll have a moment like that where they start getting the zoomies. It's like the second it clicks in their head that, oh my God, I'm off of the leash right now, right? And that's where you want to really capitalize on making sure you still have control over him in that moment. Cool, let's go ahead and we're gonna keep walking a little bit more here. And you don't need to practice a gazillion of these. Like, even if they're not 100% perfect repetitions, as long as we ultimately wind up correcting and getting him back to us, obviously he's learning from it, right? The next one will be better. Yeah. No, I'm not getting that vibe out of him. It's just like you were kind of saying or alluding to. It's just starting to build confidence in giving him those freedoms. And I always think like this kind of stuff, you know, at least where it's, you know, okay to do so, like where there's not a ton of stuff going on. These are like the best things that you could do with your dog, you know. Like, I don't think my dogs have more fun than when we go for off-leash hikes places where they could go off and explore and not feel like they're constantly being held back by something. And I even think in their mind, there's a big difference between them being fully off-leash and them on a long line, you know? They're still in their mind, like, restrained by something. So give your come command.
Come.
Then give your sit. Perfect. So always make sure with your come commands, especially when you're working them off leash and stuff, that he's coming all the way into you as opposed to you going into him, right? Like that one was fine, but I could tell you were like almost wanting to go forward towards him on that. Perfect. Then go ahead and just break him and we'll keep walking.
Come.
Mark with no.
No.
Then tell him come again.
Come.
Mark with no again.
No. Come.
Good, mark with no again.
No. Dozer. Come.
Mark with no one more time.
No.
And then kind of encourage him over to you.
Come.
There you go.
Sit.
Perfect.
Good job.
So that'll be something to work on a little bit, obviously, is tightening that come command up. Obviously, that hasn't been a big priority that we've worked on so far, but especially given wanting to work some off-leash stuff and things like that, we want that to tighten up even a little more.
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool. Then go ahead and break him out of it. And then we're going to start walking back this way. And then we'll keep working a few more of those on the way back. See if we can get him a little tighter with it. So after like 1 or 2 corrections, if you could tell like he's not being really disobedient, he just doesn't know exactly what to do, you can give a little bit of help. I just want to make sure that help comes after the correction, not before it. Because we've got to make sure we identify that that was wrong so that we could then help and show him what it is we want him to do. Perfect. Now see that step in that you did there? Did you see that?
No. Did I do it?
Yeah, he started coming and you stepped into him to kind of meet him halfway. So it's fine, obviously, just be aware of it. You guys can go ahead.
Okay.
No, no problem. Very good. Got a little snack there, look at that. All right, go ahead and break him, let's keep walking. So that's exactly how I handle, obviously, if I'm doing off-leash work and somebody's coming, whether it's a dog or a person or anything. Just get them into, position, allow the person to go by, and then keep moving on. Generally, my first couple off-leash hikes, I kind of like when they just default to this on their own, because it's really showing me he's understanding the expectation, And then as he loosens up and starts to go off more, he's going to be much less likely to make the mistakes, because he already made them early on, That's the reason why he's staying so tight, is he had to get corrected for a couple different things. Whenever you want, let's go ahead and try again here.
Come. Sit.
Perfect, much better. Cool. Then you can go ahead and break him again. Break! Dozer, come on. There we go. Pretty good. Nice. Cool.
As we practice this, are you like, is the suggestion sort of like short duration so we can be successful and then build up?
Short duration of what? Do you mean like the walk as a whole?
Or just like the off-leash walk, yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean, realistically, nothing would change if you were to do this for 30 more minutes, 40 more minutes, My biggest suggestion has nothing to do with the amount of time for it. It just has to do with the locations in which you're doing so, right? So pick kind of like off times where you're not going to see a ton of people, Go places, obviously. Some places are more strict than others about leashes, obviously, and you want to be definitely mindful of that. And then, generally, even if even if I'm going with my dogs who are very off-leash reliable, if there's a bunch of people around, I don't do it, All that said, I can't imagine that you would have many issues with this as long as you stay on him just as much as you have with your walking, you know? And a lot of times we find that the dogs are almost better behaved when they're off of the leash, because something about the mindset of the owner being more on top of things because they're off of the leash, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
It's like we psychologically are like, you're off the leash right now. Like if you really wanted to, you could go run all the way over there, right? So we stay more on top of the dog because we don't have that fail safe. And then, like I said, I always, whatever your accountability is, you generally would hold him at as far as your e-collar level and stuff. I always go much higher, you know, whenever we're off leash. I really want to set that tone of if you make a mistake and try to go off after something, that correction is not going to be fun, you know?
Right.
I want to just kind of one and done those things. And I can remember times where every single one of my dogs has been off leash and made that wrong choice, and I've corrected it, and then we've pretty much been past it after that.
Okay.
Like my one, like I remember one time we were off leash hiking. I don't remember exactly where we were, but suddenly there was like a buck like 20 feet away from us right there. And same deal, she just went flying after that thing and just corrected her pretty high. I think it was almost all the way up on the e-collar. And then she came running back, and that was like the last time off leash she ever really tried to dart off after something. For my other, it was with a squirrel. We were playing ball off leash in a field and took off after a squirrel. Same deal, got him for that. So, like I said, you just have to go into things with the mindset of like, right now, I'm ready to address like anything. If he, for whatever reason, wanted to go try to run after that golf cart or something, you know, I'm ready to catch it. Yeah, I mean, he really did fantastic. And like I said, I figured, I mean, he did so well the last few sessions. I figured kind of, you know, changing it up and doing something fun like that would be a cool way to kind of end things with him.
For sure.
And I think he did really awesome with it. So biggest thing I tell everybody at this stage is you just got to keep staying on him, right? He's doing great right now, but he's doing great because you guys have been staying on him. So just don't let it slip.